G'day guys, welcome to the SC Playbook question and answer podcast out of NRL Supercoach Round 1, Part 2. The Vegas games are in the bag. 6 games to go in Round 1, which means we have all of about 6 or 7 hours to finalise teams. Of course, there's a rolling lockout, so you can still chop and change things across the weekend, provided the player that is in your squad has not played yet, because they will lock into your team, but you can chop around anyone else in your squad. Going to rip into the questions today from the SC Playbook subscriber Discord community. Popping off that one. Questions left, right, and centre. And obviously the podcast going live to all. Guys, if you are a subscriber, jump in. I've been doing weekly Q&As in the Discord with the community there, and that also gets recorded and goes live into there afterwards as well. So if you haven't checked that one out, do so. On today's show, before the questions, I'm just going to touch on a little bit of my team reveal. That is also on the website, scplaybook.com.au, and chatted about that in the Q&A last night in detail. So check it out there. Marcy Makasini, third most owned player in Supercoach, dropped from the Kuma Stallions. Controversial. Not something I'd really considered throughout the preseason, but there is method to the madness, I promise you. And it's got nothing to do with Makasini's Supercoach credentials for round 1 or round 2, for his job security, for his point scoring potential, any of that. He's almost certainly going to be traded into my team in round 4. The reason being is I currently have 4 gun CT dubs, not necessarily top value, but around that 524, bottom of Selwyn Cobbo, up to Latrell at 626, along with Herbie. I'm really keen on all of them, and I'm sort of backing the gut a little bit in that I really want to start them all. I don't want to see Cobbo score a hat-trick on Sunday evening, the final game of the round, and I've dropped him for a cheapie who scores 20 for me. So I think I'm going to back my gut in on that one. And I also don't have Moses Leo at the moment. So the reality is that I'm very confident one of my 7 CT dubs, along with a flex position to play with as well, there's 8 players there, that by sort of round 3, 4, one of them is going to be injured, underperforming, dropped, whatever it might be. And I'm going to have to get rid of one of them. And in which case, round 3, before those first initial price rises, is one of the biggest, well, probably the biggest trading week of the year, where we'll probably boost and whatnot and fix up any fires in our team when we have the sample size of 2 rounds of Supercoach action to make our decisions. I don't really want to have to be using it on... I mean, like I could be having to get Moses Leo into my team. If then, say, I drop Cobbo and he's fine, I need to get him into my team, whatever it is. So I suspect that one of them is going to need trading. And because Makasini is not playing round 1 and he won't change in price to round 4, I'm happy just to do that long term. And hopefully my cheapies in the meantime all do well. And maybe it is one of my mid-range sort of gun CT dubs or my flex that I drop down to Makasini by then. In the meantime, look, I fully expect him to get picked in round 2 for the Tigers season opener. But if he doesn't get picked or something happens, who knows, Draft Skelton's looming, then it'll be a win on my behalf. But let me emphasise, I think he's a terrific starter in teams to begin the season. This is just the tactic that I've gone with, backing in my better CT dubs. And another part of this logic is, now, squad value is all relative, right? So you can never have too much squad value, and it's about having more than other people in Supercoach and your Supercoach rivals. That being said, it looks like a pretty good cheapie crop this season. I'm finding it pretty difficult to work out which ones are the best, namely around those 2 RF cheapies where there's red flags and job security and minute question marks around all of them. But some of them are going to pop off. Others will emerge. A lot of players are undervalued based on the new stat system, so their values will rise across the season. So for all these reasons, I really don't think it's going to be a tough season for cash generation. Again, relative. Doesn't mean you don't want to have more than people, but for that as well, I'm just like, geez, do we need every one of these cheapies, especially at CT Dub, where the difference between getting a sort of 500-600K player and a cheapie who might see no ball and struggle could be a 50-point average across the opening start of the season if you get it right. So that's the way I'm playing it. But yes, don't let that deter you from a Makasini round 1 start, because he's a terrific buy, terrific player. The Tigers have a soft draw to start the season, so he's also a very viable play in the CT Dub and in 18s to start the season. As I said, full team reveal at scplaybook.com.au and in the Discord Q&A from last night. Now let's get into some questions ahead of part 2 of round 1. First one coming in from James Beckman, new to the Playbook community, loving it so far. Thank you, Becco. Appreciate that, mate. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Hopgood and Walsh or Tino and Keeney? Yep, easy one for me. It's Tino and Kinney. I narrowly like Tino as a buy more than Hopgood, and Kinney at, what is he, 350 or something, or 330k cheaper than Walsh. I think that's a no-brainer. I think there are probably two out-and-out must-haves for round one that you have to have in your team. One is Keanu Kinney, and the other is David Fafita. Just, throw in the towel if you're not starting those two. And Kinney also, I haven't seen any confirmation around, but we don't know who's going to kick goals for the Titans. With Jaden Campbell out, it could be Kinney, it could be Beau Fermor, or someone could come from the clouds, but yeah, must have Kinney, so lock him in, lock Tino in, the Titans. Here's one that was asked in the Q&A in the Discord last night, but I'll touch on it again because I think it is a very relevant one for listeners. And it's one from D Shep. Looking at my last reserve spot, who has a better point upside in them out of Flegler and Colquhoun? It's really difficult. It's a bit of a toss the coin job. I am now leaning towards Flegler off the back of being named to start. If he was off the bench, it'd 100% be Colquhoun. I'm looking at the teams this week, and with Colquhoun, who I think is a great buy and will make good money, 4 forward bench. I know there's 6 players there, but provided there's no injuries and whatnot, Craig Fitzgibbons loves his 4 forward bench. He'd occasionally put Daniel Atkinson into the action last year, but early in the season, there's probably going to be some tighter games. Granted, if the Titans don't show up, no Jaden Campbell, no Jamin Jolliffe, maybe they could put a score on him, but I think he'll stick with that 4 forward rotation, and I think that will impact Colquhoun and limit his minutes a little bit. From a Supercoach perspective, if an outside back had to be put into play at all, granted it could be Sifa Talakai, but if a back were to go down in the game, it'd be huge for Colquhoun's minutes, but the knowledge that we have and the benches that we're looking at, the bench of the Dolphins with still a few forwards to come back into the mix there, namely Max Plath, Jeremy Marshall-King. There's a few things that will tweak that forward pack. It looks pretty good for Flegler. Eye test was 10 out of 10 in the preseason trials, so I would imagine Colquhoun maybe gets a few more minutes, but I think Flegler's going to get through a lot of work while he's on there. Good offload on him, so I said not much in it, but I'd narrowly lean to Tommy Flegler. Good question coming in from, where are we? That is not Jimmy. Jimmy's talking about the spy. We'll leave that under the Discord. Talking around Big Fish, with the majority of front row forward to have cheapies on wait and watch, which ones do you rank the highest to own? So I put out a post on the SC Playbook socials around the 2RF cheapies, and yeah, honestly, really difficult. So here is what they are based on ownership, and it's just 2RF for now and dual 2RF front row forwards, but there's no like Paseka, Flegler in there. But from the 2RFs, honestly, I think you're picking one and hoping for a lot of it. Jesse Colquhoun, 44%. Adavalu Lasardi, 37%. Cooper By, 36%. Arama Howe, 20%. Joe Chan, 15%. Jacob Laban, 13%. Noah Martin, 8%. Very quick rundown of this. Spoke about it in depth last night in the Q&A. And honestly, you could do a whole show on this. But Jesse Colquhoun, job locked in. Minutes are going to be decent. 4 forward bench concern around how many minutes, but looks the safest and the number one to me. Lasardi, I've spoken a lot about him this week, but starting this week, likely starts next week. Could be a long-term start, an absolute must-have. Looks like someone who will score well while on the field for me as well. I'd prefer him running off Jerome Hughes, but nonetheless, off Munster, not a bad place to be. Cooper By, off the bench, a little bit light on in middles, the Titans. Just because he's young, does he have like a sort of 30, 50-minute split with Chris Randall, in which case he'll struggle to make any early coin? Arama House, starting edge, back row Titans. Josh Paxton in reserves. Look, I think if Paxton doesn't come onto the 6-man bench, that would be a big tick for Arama Howe, in which case I like him. Hopefully scores well, hopefully plays big minutes. I don't mind that. Joe Chan, I don't know. It sounds like he's won the role on merit and that's his spot to lose now, but again, with Sean Bloor to come back, with Lasardi there who could win the spot as well in the opening weeks, Trent Liera to come back, what do they look like? He's also a bit more expensive at 309k. All that being said, there's some upside. If he keeps an 80-minute role, he could be the pick of them. When he has had 80-minute games in the past, he hasn't scored overly well, but he's definitely gotten better in recent years. And with more experience, Craig Bellamy obviously trusts him. Jacob Laban, I don't like him for now. Just with Leka Halasima on the bench, Dimitri Valmunga, $299K, slightly not awkwardly priced, but a bit more than the other boys. And I don't know, I'll happily buy him round 3 if the minutes are there, but he could be bench playing 30 minutes in no time. And it's not even a benching where he's like 201K and with 30 minutes he'd still make a little bit of cash. If he goes back to a smaller minute bench role at all, he could genuinely lose cash at $299K. So I want to see it. Noah Martin, the talk of TLT. He's won the spot on merit, guys. Like Zach Hosking, they've got so much edge depth, which is why I'm concerned about his buy credentials, that Zach Hosking, it looks as though he'll be moving into a middle role. Noah Martin is starting on the edge. Matty Nicholson is coming back from an injury. So there's every chance that Nico comes back and starts on the edge in a few weeks' time, or is eased off the bench, whatever it is. But as it stands, Noah Martin has that on merit. But that doesn't mean that the starting spot means 80 minutes, because Matty Timoko had an injury, played preseason. He had I think it was like a foot injury. He was in a moon boot or something throughout the preseason at stages from an injury sustained in the internationals last year, end of year Pacific Championships. Matty Timoko is going to come back in at centre. Sasangi's going to go to the back row off the bench, and you've then got Sasangi, Nicholson, Martin vying for the minutes on the edge. And look, for Noah Martin to have a 60-plus minute role, he's going to have to be damn good. I'm not saying he can't do it, but there's just too much edge depth for me there with the little flyer of Hosking as well, who looks like he's moving to the middle. So the reality is we could start with 2 of these guys each for round 1. Some people maybe more with Colquhoun or Arama Howe at front row availability as well. And by round 3, they could all be out for 3 that we didn't get. Who do I have at the moment? I'm leaning toward, I've got Colquhoun, I've got Lasardi. The third one is a real tricky one, leaning to Arama Howe. 235K, dual position. He just ticks a few extra boxes than a few of the other boys. Nonetheless, job security not great. Would love for Paxton to not be on the bench at all come game day. Guys and girls, we have partnered with Mountain Culture Beer Co. to kick off the 2026 NRL Supercoach season. They are rated Australia's #1 brewery, winning the prestigious Gab's Hottest 100 Craft Beer Award with their Status Quo Pale Ale for the 4th year on the trot. And in recent weeks, the catch cry has been, greatness comes with change. To all the beer drinkers out there who've drunk the same thing that they've drunk since they were 18 years old, and change it up. Try something new for a change, and it might change your world, a new beer. And I've had people messaging through. I had one in particular come through this week saying he was going through the drive-through bottle shop as he was listening to this podcast last week. The plug came out, greatness comes with change. He went, he got some Mountain Culture beer, said it was unbelievable, life-changing. That could be you guys. So when you're down at the local, check out the taps. There'll be Mountain Culture on it. It's huge. 4 years running, best craft beer in Australia. Do it yourself. If you're at the bottle, whatever it might be. Easier yet, do it from your lounge. If you're keen to give it a crack, head to mountainculture.com.au and use the discount code MountainCulture4Pete, that is the number 4, to receive 10% off beers with your first order. So thank you to Mountain Culture for their ongoing support this season. One from Stapo, and it's somewhat relevant to my team. Would you go Herbie to Cobbo in order to fund Lasardi to Angus Crichton? The answer is probably not. What I will say, though, is that Brisbane is meant to get potentially pounded with rain on Sunday. The current forecast for Sunday, showers, 27 showers, that's putting it lightly, 4 to 50 mils of rain, 75% chance of at least 4 mils, 50% chance of at least 20 mils, 25% of at least 50 mils. Now, this looms to me on a relatively dry surface. Doesn't have to be completely dry. There can be some drizzle or a few showers, but one of the highest scoring points, total points games of the round, and a great one for Supercoach as well. This concerns me. Someone who's sort of gone a little all in on Selwyn Cobbo and the left edge of the Dolphins. I just think the more I look at it, I think Cobbo's still a great buy. Torrential rain, puddles on the field, that kind of business, that would have me a little worried on Sunday. I could always potentially go, depending on what it looked like, Cobbo down to Macassini as well, so I'll keep my options open. But let's say it's hopefully clears up a little and the forecast isn't too bad. You're paying a lot of bicky for Herbie Farnworth. I think he's a good buy, but nonetheless, if we add in potentially very heavy rain for that game and attacking opportunities are limited a little bit, ball movement is limited, and he starts with a 50 or a 60, he's got to score really, really well to maintain that value. So I still think he's a very good buy. He's in my team, don't get me wrong. I've gone the little Cobbo Herbie wedge there. But again, there are a lot of good buys. And there's also a hell of a lot of, as we said, cheapy CT dubs lingering around from TLT. So, you could go Cobbo or Herbie, but Herbie, let's talk about him, down to like a Moses Leo and free up, about 600K to spend elsewhere in your squad. Now, again, not saying I'm doing it, pick Herbie, but I don't think Herbie is a must. And again, we talk about the new scoring system and how it'll benefit centres, and it will across the duration of the season, but I think it's going to be more so in the back end of the year and around Origin when there are some blowout score lines and the centres are getting these easy tip-on try assists. But early on in the year, maybe not so much. So, yeah, to answer your question, I'd stick with Herbie, but just a bit of food for thought around that one. Next question coming in hot from Mally. Thoughts on Nick Meaney as a pod and paying up for Munster? I mean, spoken about Munster all pre-season, don't need to dribble on about him any more than we have, but yeah, Nick Meaney, he was certainly a big winner out of TLT, wasn't he? Named on the wing, try-scoring opportunities are going to increase. He'll be a full-time goal kicker. He's averaged in the last 4 years 61, 63, 68, 61. Really good numbers. So you add in, full-time goal-kicking duties. You add in, try-scoring opportunities and line break opportunities. Also, we've seen in the first 2 games of the weekend in Vegas, they just award line breaks that little bit easier. So it might only be, and we've seen this in the past. Spy spoke about it on the podcast on Tuesday, but it might be like a little half break down the sideline, and NRL tend to give those quite often if they're in space, even for a few metres. So little things like this for wingers could be beneficial. Again, whoopsie, move the old camera. Watch this space. But yeah, I don't mind Nick Meaney. I just think early on in the season, I'm not that keen to start him, but I think he'll be very relevant at some stage. Next one, coming in from Nick Balearis. What are your thoughts on Ali Leotawa as a pod? He's always had huge potential. Is this the year he explodes? So, I love him, yeah. I won't be starting him, but shish. He had an injury interrupted last year, 46 points per game, from 80 minutes per game, but very disrupted. Had an injury in round 8, but played the game, missed a few weeks, came back, played a game in round 12, and then got injured again. Base wasn't great, 24, but the base and power, you add tackle bust and these sorts of things, much, much better. He's still young. Like, he's an up-and-comer, just a devastating runner. Starting the season at, 452K. That's not bad, is it? Yeah, I think he will turn into a Supercoach powerhouse at some stage. I think the new stat system is going to benefit him a lot. For a big unit, he has really slick hands, really soft hands, and I think he's going to get a lot of, not easy, like classy try assists and line assists just from tip-ons. I just want to see it early. As I said, he's had a few injury troubles early on in his career. Let's see how the Warriors go and go from there. But at the price, yeah, as I said, centre's largely undervalued. I think there's a serious play in Leotawa. Next one coming from OBU Billy Goats. Who are you most scared of fading? Cleary, Latrell, Walsh, or Sammy Walker? That is an easy one, and it is Reece Walsh. Cleary a little bit, sure, but I just think with the brutal draw to start the season, his huge price, I really think he needs to go 90 to 100 plus to really punish those who have faded. I don't think he's going to do it early on, so I'm okay with fading him. And I'm a Sammy Walker owner, which I'm pretty keen on early. Latrell, honestly, you add in the wet weather forecast on the weekend, the round 4 bye, the fact that there's just such a low work rate. Like, he could have six runs a game. He could have 6 tries or 6 try assists from those 6 plays, but nonetheless, if the attack doesn't come, especially in wet weather where it's a little trickier, I think Latrell's going to have some 30s in him. I really do. It's just that they're going to be matched with some 80s, 90s, 100s, and that's the hope. But I wouldn't be that scared of fading him, I don't think. I wouldn't be that scared of fading Sammy Walker either, but definitely Reece Walsh is the number one that scares me. There's a few showers around, certainly nowhere near the amount of Sunday in Brisbane, but for the Panthers and Broncos clash as well. So as a Walsh fader and an Isaiah Yeo owner who loves the tough stuff in wet conditions, let it rain, because I think if it rains even a little bit steadily for that game, and as I said, the forecast isn't too bad, but there are showers around, I think that would really limit Reece Walsh against Penrith of all teams. Isaiah Yeo, lock it in for him. Loves it. Moving on to one from Reece. Yeah, this is a tough one. I mentioned it on the Q&A last night, but if you had to choose between Fa'alongo or Jai Gray as last fullback, who would you go? It depends what your appetite in terms of risk v reward is. Jai Gray, he was basing 40 plus per game regularly last season, did it like 7 or 8 times. He's priced like, I think he's going to go up. He gets through so much work. He had a little bit of attack last year, but not too much on the try assist front. So I think there's more to come from him in a better bunny side. Even like the rain on the weekend, it's not going to help him, but he could get through 1,000 runs. He could go through 30 runs in that game, especially under the new system. So Fa'alongo could have 30s and then he could have 130s. Jai Gray, I reckon, will lock in for just these pretty easy 55, 60s. There's upside there too, don't get me wrong, but I think his ceiling is far more limited than Fa'alongo. So, yeah, I know there's a bit of fence sitting there, but I think let your appetite for risk decide. Do you want to lock in the safe Gray early? I think they're both going to make money. Or do you want the high risk, high reward of Sua Fa'alongo? One in from Nino. Great to be back for another unreal year. I missed out on Lukey and Mooney due to the great Telstra service. Feel like, it's devastating. Feel like I'm going to want at least one of them in next week or two. So which option's better moving forward? I like your thinking, firstly, of like looking ahead, going, these two guys I'm probably going to want. Missed out on both of them. Potentially need to free up a little bit of cash, especially with all the mid-range, 2 hour mid-range cheapies and the question marks around them. I'm looking at my team going, say I have an Arama Howe or a Lasati who underperform and get benched or whatever by round 3, they're probably almost certainly going to become a Trey Mooney if Mooney delivers again. So I like that you're sort of looking ahead and going, all right, I would like to have a bit of cash in the bank for these two. I wouldn't like overcompensate cash-wise in my bank just yet if there's only one player that you've gone, I've missed this person, I need them, and I'll need cash to get up to them. But when there's sort of 2 players plus that you might have missed out on early, you're going, all right, maybe I need to prepare for this a little bit. Lots can change, though. There was the Drinky double interchange on the weekend. There was the Fletcher Sharp injury. So there's question marks around what the actual minutes of these guys will be. I think Trey Mooney was about 49. He was on track for an early 60 before that late try and line break. So let's see what his minutes and output are this week. Ditto Helam Lukey. I suspect he'll be a 65 to 80 minute player early on. But look, those 2 interchanges on Drinky, does he play 60 with his injury history? Well, time will tell, but things can change very quickly. In terms of the question mark, I said I like your philosophy. Iro and Cobbo, both great options. I would opt for Cobbo. What I will say for Cobbo owners, and don't shoot me down if he comes in and gets 30 in torrential rain on Sunday. I said if it's that bad, I may look to change things up a little bit. But if Cobbo, they've got the Titans in round 2 at Suncorp, I believe that one is. So if he comes in and gets 30 week 1, don't stress. That round 2 clash, hopefully in dry conditions, at Suncorp Stadium, 6:15 p.m. next Sunday. That's a great matchup for Cobbo, and that's the one that I'm looking at. He's going up against that weak edge of the Titans. I believe it's Fiamani, Jojo Fafita. There will be Lachlan Ilias, Arama Howe, potentially. It's like Herbie Katoa plays right, but shifts over to left. Him, Nikarima, Herbie, Cobbo, they could have a field day out there. So if you are following me into Cobbo, just reserve expectations this week if it is bucketing down rain. So I'd go the Cobbo option. All that being said, Iro, tried and tested, gun, great matchup this week against that same Titans edge. So, yeah. Alrighty, guys, the NordVPN pod play of the week is Tom Trbojevic. Who else? Surprisingly, very little said about him this season so far, and he's currently at just 6.9% ownership. Pretty crazy numbers for Turbo, who at $692K, I think he's at a good price. Like, Yes, he is one that is potentially hindered by the new stat system and the tip-ons from centres getting try assists because he's such a good sweeper and will often hit his centre who hits the winger. You might lose a few there, but look, the draw against the Raiders in Manly to start, tough, yes, but there's a lot of new faces such as Sasangi in the centres, Ethan Sanders at half. We've got Noah Martin on the edge. So there's some changes there. Around one home game, don't mind it. Newcastle at home, round 2, love that. Knights coming off their big travel. Around 3, Byshore. Roosters round 4, also at home. Madness. Then the Dolphins up at Redcliffe, I think that one is. So not too bad at all. So yeah, Tommy Turbo, I would consider him a lot more, but I've gone down that route of mid-range fullbacks, and I think there are a lot of really good ones. But for not that much more expensive, Tom Trebojevic, on all reports, fit, healthy, good preseason. So, yeah, Tommy Turbo, the NordVPN pod play of the week. Guys, if you are after a point of difference online, look no further than NordVPN. We hear the horror stories of cyber attacks all the time, and like anything, the initial thought is always that it will not happen to me. Well, it did so last year, and I'd have given anything to have my data online protected. I lost cash, my mobile number, emails, social channels, bank cards, and a heap more. Absolutely rocked me, and it all could have been avoided had I been with NordVPN. It is premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month. Let that one sink in for a second. Very cheap. Protection aside, we're all sports fans here. Nord also allows you to access content that's not in your region with one click. If you're abroad, you can access all your streaming services from back home. European summer travelers, this has you written all over it. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/SC Playbook. The link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. That will be in the podcast description. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Trust me, as someone who's been hit where it hurts, it could be the best thing that you ever do. Jump on board with NordVPN. All right, next question coming in from... Where are we? Sassy. Tim, you handsome devil. Thank you, mate. Structure my team for forward flex for early season points. Tino versus Keon versus Carrigan. Who gets the nod? Firstly, all great picks. I don't knock any of them. I would definitely lean towards Tino or Keon, though. And I think they're both great. I just think they've got so much more upside than Carrigan. I think Carrigan's going to benefit under the new system with tackles, etc., but so will the other two. And they just have so much more attacking upside. Maxi Bryden in the Discord today had some stats. Keon averaged 81.7 in prop games last year, but also needed 70 minutes per game to score that. Does that get reduced? Question mark. Firstly on that, yes, I think probably the 70 minutes does get reduced a little bit. Not necessarily this week and with Cheese unavailable, who will obviously slot into that hooking middle forward running lock sort of rotation, but 70 minutes plus week in, week out. I don't know if you'll maintain that or if you'll need to. Nonetheless, you won't be too far off it. Tino, 74.5 average last year when you remove the sub 40-minute games. Julie's super valuable too, only played 61 minutes on average as well. Second year back from an ACL, so can he best that? Key to that one, yes. Players nearly always come back from an ACL injury and best it. So that's huge for Tino Vasua Malawi. I love them both. Who would I go between the two? Flip a bit of a coin. I lean towards Tino. Dual position is outstanding. And then just the fact that, I said, coming back from the ACL injury, Jamin Jolliffe has already gone down for the season. So I just think he has to play good minutes. Whereas the Bunnies, with a few players to come back as well from injury, granted there's a big question mark over Dry Arrow in the short-term future. So I'd lean towards Tino, but I think him and Keon, you could viably run both of them for sure. One from ScoMo. Hey, Tim, would you prefer the extra cash plus David Fafita or Koloa Matangi and less cash? David Fafita and more cash. David Fafita is a must. Here's a really good one, and I'm going to wrap it up with this one, but I think it's a nice one too from Bo Ner, and I've spoken to some people privately about it with certain questions. I don't think he's really come up across our network this week, though. I don't know why, but I think the best... Okay, let me ask the question first. But from Bo, Timmy Time, why has Jake Simkin not been spoken about at all this preseason? He has this preseason. I just don't think since the Cheese injury, his name's been thrown up as much as it should have. Will Walsh share minutes? He averaged 62 in 5 80-minute games to finish last season. Now, I think the best cheapie hookers were the ones that played last weekend, which is very annoying for those who didn't jump on or whatever it might be, and that's Reid Marnie, I think Bailey Hayward. I still don't love the Phoenix Crossland one. Nonetheless, 40-20 last weekend, scored really well, big minutes, also impacted by the injury to Fletcher Sharp, which saw Sandon going to the halves instead of hooker. Nonetheless, happy days if you have Crossland as it stands. This week, unless you're going with sort of cheese, I don't think there's many great options. I don't love the Uelu option because when Robson comes back and they've got a buy in, I think, round 5 of the Roosters, Simpkin at a tick over 400K probably plays 80 minutes. Yeah, I don't mind him. Like I said, down the pecking order of options, but if you still have that slot to fill in, I think he's a viable play that should earn some relatively decent cash. I think worst case, he doesn't get his 80 minutes and he averages like a 45-50 and maybe makes a little bit of cash or meanders around that same price. I don't think he's going to lose money at all from that position, from that price point. So, yeah, I think if you are still looking for that reserve hooker, Jake Simpkin is a very viable option. I don't think Walsh will go into number 9. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't have thought Joey Walsh would slot in there. I would have thought he'd probably slot in more as a, if they're chasing points late on in the game, he comes on and just roams and sort of plays around. I think that sort of Queensland bench forward that like a Cronk or a Tommy Dearden has played in the past where they just go and play as a bit of a ball player and roam around. So I think that's what Walsh would do if he did come on. But look, maybe he spends time at 9. If Walsh did spend time at 9, I wouldn't be long. So yeah, I don't mind the Jake Simpkin play if you're looking for that backup hooker. All righty, guys, that'll do us for the Q&A podcast, the final one of the kind of the preseason. The season has started, so it's technically probably not preseason anymore, but hope you enjoyed and got a little bit out of it. Good luck this weekend and enjoy the remainder of NRL Round 1.